With a whopping 46% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes critic score, Captain America Brave New World falls to the bottom of MCU movies. It has only beaten out two others, Eternals and Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Now, there are a few various reasons on why this is the case. However, I do believe Marvel intentionally released this movie knowing it was going to be a failure. Hi fellas, my name is Teddy Clyde, and I have too many opinions on things that do not matter. Captain America Brave New World, or Brave New World as I will be calling it for the remainder of this video, because good lord is that a mouthful, is a fine superhero movie. Now, compared to the best of all superhero movies ever made, clearly it does not compete, but I did have a decent time watching it in the theater. I also left the theater feeling deeply confused, because that is not the movie I thought I was going to be seeing. For context on what level of a fan I am here, I would consider myself a very average Marvel movie fan. I haven't really gotten into the comics, but I've heard about them from my friends, so I know a little bit from there. I've seen all of the movies through Endgame, but not as many since then. I've watched a few of the TV shows, especially the first few that came out, but not as many of the new ones. So overall, any new Marvel project, I should have a general understanding of what's happening. As I argue, people with less knowledge than me, so people like my parents who really only see the movies and don't really remember them or interact with the fandom at all, should be able to understand what is happening and enjoy the movie. Besides that though, before getting into the issues, we should jump into the actual movie. And sorry to anyone who's already seen it and doesn't really need a recap, but I don't really know anyone besides myself who's seen this movie, so I'm just assuming there's not many of you guys here. Brave New World released on Valentine's Day of 2025, roughly 6 years after the release of Endgame, which I only mention because everything in Marvel at this point is in relation to that movie in my brain. Anywho, it also released about 4 years after the TV show Falcon and the Winter Soldier came out, which is the main basis and starting point for this movie, which I did end up rewatching for this video, so don't say I don't do anything for you guys. This movie opens with Harrison Ford, who we quickly find out is the new president, Thaddeus Ross. This character has shown up in a few other Marvel projects, specifically The Incredible Hulk, where he is the guy kind of pushing and heading up the recreation of the super serum, which is what made Steve, buff man Steve. This is also how the Hulk ends up becoming the Hulk due to all the gamma radiation, very cool, very fun. He then later shows up in Captain America Civil War as he's the guy pushing for the Sokovia Accords, which are basically saying, hey guys, what if, and get this, the Avengers were also part of the US military. Some people sign it, some people don't, it's a whole thing, so he's in that one pushing for it, and he shows up in a couple other movies just tracking down all the people who didn't sign it, which was Steve Rogers and Captain America's side of things. Since the original actor for this character died, I did not realize on the first time watching this movie that I was supposed to know this guy. They do info dump about a lot of the stuff at the beginning and kind of here's how he's connected to the Hulk, here's all this other stuff, but I really did not realize that the Sokovia Accords guy and this guy are supposed to be the same guy, which is kind of on me, but also kind of on the movie for not explaining it better. We then jump to the classic Marvel quippy fight scene. In this, Sam has to stop a mysterious package from trading hands. He does, but the main bad guy of the group gets away. We are also introduced to Joaquin Torres, who we do first see in the Falcon and Winter Soldier TV show, but he has now become the Falcon as Sam has taken up the mantle of Captain America. He is the, stereotypical, chatty, silly, little guy, which is a very cliche character in the Marvel Universe at this point. However, he's just so silly, you kind of have to love him. A little while later, Sam and Torres go to train with Isaiah Bradley. Now, this guy is also introduced in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier TV show, which is kind of a pattern if you haven't noticed. Isaiah had been given a version of the super serum in the 1950s, and after doing a little bit of military stuff, he was imprisoned and experimented on for the following 30 years until a nurse took pity on him and faked his death so he could escape. The US government did not acknowledge his existence, and no one knew he existed up until the end of that TV show. While at training, Sam gets an invitation from President Ross for him and Torres to go to the White House to celebrate the return of the package, as well as talk about what is in it with political people, all the fancy meetings and stuff. He says yes, so long as Isaiah is also invited. Isaiah is deeply distrustful of the American government and does not trust Ross for shit also, and rightfully so. But, he says yes, so guess who's going to the White House? At this big White House conference dinner thing, the president takes Sam aside and was like, hey bestie, what if we brought back the Avengers? Which Sam is not super excited about, seeing as that was the whole thing with the Sokovia Accords of let's not tie the Avengers to the US government, or any government for that matter. So he's really not excited about it. A little bit later, the president starts giving his speech, and it's talking about what's in the package. It's apparently some fancy old resource that showed up from the Eternals. I didn't watch that movie. I don't give a shit. Does not really matter, I don't think. But either way, it's a bunch of different countries, leaders, all listening in of oh, we should share this resource, yada yada, island in the ocean, something. In his speech, a creepy little song starts to play in the background, and very quickly, Isaiah pulls the gun on the president and shoots at him. He misses, but, the damage is already done, and also a couple other people pull guns at this time. Isaiah runs out of the White House. He gets pretty far, but ends up getting surrounded by police. But once the police are surrounding him and Sam's talking to him, it's clear this man has no idea what just happened. He wouldn't do this. He is happy not being in prison anymore. Sam, of course, takes Isaiah's side, as he knows that this man would not do anything to put himself back in jail. He knows that Isaiah was not fully in control of what was happening, clearly. Ross, on the other hand, disagrees about that and sends him straight to jail, so time for our little guy, Sam, to go rogue. He ropes in Torres into this, who may or may not illegally get the security footage from the White House that night to see what was going on. In the security footage, we see that Isaiah's phone, a little bit before the speech, started flashing lights at him, and when looking at all of the other people who ended up pulling the guns also, theirs did as well. So something's fucked up with that. Things continue to go bad for Sam as, while he's driving, the main bad guy from the package deal starts trying to kill him. They do their fighty thing. The guy mentions a mysterious buyer who knows too many things, and he knows the odds of things. Doesn't really matter, because Sam gets the upper hand on this main bad guy, and he takes him down. While he's down, the phone in this man's pocket starts ringing, which Sam answers. On the other end, we get the first glimpse of the main bad guy for this movie, who does his mysterious little threat and then hangs up abruptly. Meanwhile, the president is dealing with, politics and stuff. Yeah, it's the least interesting part of this movie. Torres ends up tracing that phone call to a secret military base in the middle of nowhere, which obviously means it's time to go there right now. Also, in the prison that's hosting all of the guys involved in the shooting, a prison guard ends up robotically moving to one of the jail cells, shooting all of the guys in there, who are all of them except Isaiah, because they separated him due to, him having the super serum. So he shoots every guy in there, and then pulls the gun on himself and kills himself. This is all happening while that creepy song is playing in the background. Now, it may feel like I keep jumping from plot point to plot point, but that is simply because this is just how the movie is set up, so sorry about that. Anyhow, jumping back to President Ross, he gets a phone call from a guy saying, hey, we're going to be moving the prisoner. But before that guy can finish talking, he gets shot. The prisoner then picks up the phone and starts talking to the president. Ross really quickly finds out that this guy is the guy who's been orchestrating all of the attacks against him. So everything that Isaiah did, all the guys in the prison getting shot, that is all this dude's fault. Now, he does his, silly little vague threats over the phone again, and hangs up. As the audience, it is pretty clear at this point that this prisoner guy and the buyer guy from before are the same guy, which means our little guys heading to the secret military base are headed right towards that guy. Speaking of, back to our main guys, they've broken into the facility. They start rummaging around through this weird and gross looking lab, and based off of all of the papers and pictures and computer stuff that they find, it is clear that whoever's running this lab is using mind control to control all of these people, which, is the thing we kind of just figured out a scene prior based off of the president. This guy, the prisoner, the buyer, I'm going to be calling him the leader because that's another one of his aliases, has been using his big brain, and when I say big, I mean literally big brain, to see all the probabilities of things and use that to orchestrate everything that has been happening thus far in this movie. He especially wants to screw over Ross, as Ross is the guy who's been keeping him imprisoned so that he can solve all of Ross's problems for him. He's also been making Ross's pills, which is just worth mentioning. He ends up escaping, so, a fun little fight ensues with our main guys and the brainwashed military who are at this base. The president's head of security ends up saving them, as the president's political problems end up getting much worse. I already kind of got into all of it, but basically, due to the plot of Eternals, there is some new fancy element resource thing that Ross is trying to come up with an agreement on how to share across all of the countries. And the leader guy is faking evidence and doing everything he can to make it seem like the US is trying to screw everybody over and steal it all for themselves, just doing everything in his power to make the deal go under, to screw over Ross specifically. Anyway, Sam ends up talking to that bad guy from the beginning whose name I really should have mentioned at this point, but oops, it's too late, to find out what he knows about the leader guy. Essentially, they had taken some of the Hulk's blood and put it in him, and instead of his body getting buff, his brain got buff. So, that's what his whole deal is. While talking to him, he ends up finding out that the president currently is on the ocean at the site where all of the Eternals material stuff is, with the US Army and Japan's army, and they're gonna go fight. So it's time for him and Torres to suit up to prevent a war breaking out. Ross is angry as hell at this point, but at this point, what do we expect? Him and Sam get into it, and after some heated conversation, we find out the reason that Ross was using the leader and his big brain was because his heart was failing, and without his help, he would have died. He then starts monologuing about how he wants to be a better man for his daughter, who hates him. 2 pilots have gotten brainwashed in the meanwhile, so time to actually go have a fight time instead, but this time in the sky, so it's different. Ross is having a breakdown also at this point because the leader through his headset starts tormenting and taunting him and getting him angrier and angrier. And in that time, his body starts to kind of morph and his eyes glow red. In the sky, Torres gets hit while trying to stop a missile from hitting one of the Japanese ships and ends up falling into the sea. Sam stops the remaining pilot, but Torres is just loose in the ocean. The president calms down though, so that's good. Don't worry too much about Torres, though, because he's sent to the hospital and he'll be fine. I mean, he is in critical condition and is having massive surgery, but he'll be fine. Bucky ends up showing up at the hospital to talk to Sam and kind of comfort him, but the conversation is pretty brief. Also, so they had sent the pills that they found in the secret military base that the president is taking to get tested to see what's in them. The guy finds out that it has a lot of gamma radiation, or has high doses that can be absorbed into the bloodstream, which is, not good. Too bad that the guy who figures this out gets killed by the leader before he can tell Sam about it. So he has no idea, but we know. Back to President Ross again, he ends up chatting with his daughter, and she agrees to meet with him. So that is a win for him. A secondary win is that the deal with the other countries about the Fancy Eternals substance thing is going to go through. So wins on all of his fronts at the current moment. Not a win, however, is that the leader guy meets up with Sam and they start fighting. He ends up villain monologuing about like how they both want the same thing and they both want Ross's true identity to be revealed to the public. He very quickly gets arrested, but Big Brain McGee over here has planned for this and has co-opted the press conference the president is currently giving. The reporters start asking him all of these questions about his past and all of his ties to the leader guy and all this, and he absolutely does not want to be answering these questions. All of this happening while over the loudspeakers, the leader's voice is taunting him. In his anger, his body starts to morph again, though this time there is nothing there to stop him. His clothes rip apart, and what once was the president is now a Red Hulk. As to be expected with Hulks, he kind of starts immediately tearing up the place, though Sam swoops in to stop him. They then have like a classic 1v1 fight. It kind of just happens. I mean, it visually looks cool and fun. I like the cherry blossoms that happen, but like, it's a fight scene. Yay. There's some big explosions, some other people show up, but it all ends because Sam is able to talk down the president because he brings up his daughter and how much he should want to, like, be better for her. And that works, so, you know, there's that problem solved, I guess. Takes, like, 10 minutes, maybe? The first thing that Sam does prior to going to the hospital is to make sure that Isaiah gets released, which, like, is iconic of him. The president is now being housed at the Marvel Ocean prison thing called the Raft due to the whole being the Hulk thing, but the government as a whole is kind of moving forward. The country is moving on. Sam ends up going to go visit him and brings his daughter because, you know, Sam is a good guy. The last scene of the movie is Sam going to visit Torres in the hospital because every plotline in this movie has to be wrapped up with a quick little visit. At the hospital, he's kind of comforting him, and Torres is all like, "Hey man, I'm so sorry I failed you, and you are so perfect, I don't know how you're like this." And Sam basically is just like, "Well, it's because I have to be." Alright, man. And then they go just kind of joking. Sam basically says, "Hey, guess what? I'm bringing back the Avengers." And then they go back to joking some more, and then the credits roll. There is, of course, an end credit scene, and because we can't just leave the quick little visits at that, Sam goes to talk to the leader. He has some vague threats about the future and other worlds and setting up some future movies, maybe Doomsday, maybe, I don't know. But other than that, that's the end of the movie. There's nothing else. All in all, I don't think the plot of this movie is horrible. It does feel a little low stakes compared to a lot of the other movies in the MCU, but I'm really not opposed to that. I mean, the acting was really good all around. I thought the jokes landed and were pretty funny. I had a little guy to care about the whole time, and then they shot him out of the sky. So on all of those fronts, 10 out of 10. But it's not the best movie. Since you guys now have a general understanding of the plot of this movie, I'd like to jump back to the marketing. At the time it was coming out, my YouTube decided for whatever reason, I needed to have the trailer for it on basically every video I watched. So I went into this movie knowing the trailer pretty well. And boy oh boy was I surprised to watch the movie and find out that the Red Hulk specifically was not the main villain. Even further surprised that he was supposed to be like a surprise villain, because he is featured very prominently on the poster, as well as they show that Ross becomes the Red Hulk in the trailer, which is a scene that happens 20 minutes before the credits roll. I happened to get a free mini poster for this movie, which is right here. So, let's look at this. Here we have Ross, And here we have the Red Hulk. Here's the one bad guy that I refuse to name. Where's the leader? Why is he not on this poster? Because this guy up here is supposed to be a surprise. He's not supposed to be a thing that we know is going to happen. And we're certainly not supposed to know that he and he are the same guy. And this guy, he is a villain, but like the leader guy is by far more important. What is this? What is this? Why did they do this? This does not make sense. For the movie we just watched, I just went through it. You know that this does not make sense. Essentially, every piece of marketing for this movie was boldly saying, hey, this is going to be a Red Hulk movie. That the main bad guy of this movie is going to be the Red Hulk, and we are going to see Harrison Ford become the Red Hulk, which is fundamentally not the movie we were given. Now, Ross's development into the Red Hulk is a major plot point, but the Red Hulk character is not a main piece of this story. Now, I think it'd be totally fine if you want to put some little small hints through the trailer, or have him struggle with his anger, maybe having his eyes glow red at one point, like hinting that that is where this movie is going to lead would be totally fine. But actively showing the big reveal of your movie in your trailer and on every poster is not okay. Doing this just results in the people who actually went to go see this movie getting angry because you told them this was going to be one way and it was completely different. I understand that often Marvel, and frankly everybody who is making adaptations of things, are going to be worried about spoilers coming out about the things they're making because the source material is already out there. If you are a fan of the comics, you know that Ross turns into the Red Hulk at some point. So if you hear he's going to be prominently featured in a movie, especially if he's being played by Harrison Ford, that's probably where it's going to be going. So instead of just letting that happen, it seems like they just wanted to get ahead of it and promote it that way so that no one could be spoiled. Like they were doing it themselves. But I don't think that's the solution here. But for as annoying as this problem is, I'm not sure that the alternative is any better. It has become a massive problem that movies, TV shows, and general plot lines are getting rewritten just because the studios don't want people to have guessed where the twists are going to be. We've even had people admit to this, like the showrunners for Westworld. And this just makes the content worse. All of that foreshadowing that might have been there just is now unfair because they just disregarded it. It's all a red herring that was intentionally placed there to be foreshadowing. The storylines are worse for it, and the fans just feel like you're wasting their time. All because they can't deal with the fact that the fans just might be right about something and have guessed something, or at least know the source material well enough to know that that's where the plot goes. God forbid the fans be right, I guess. Either way, both solutions to this problem could be avoided if they just accepted that people might just figure some things out. And frankly, it's often a sign of a good, well-written story if people figure things out because there is a reasonable payoff to the plot. But when the real twist villain of your movie is just the villain that's been there the whole time that you just didn't promote, as opposed to the villain that you did promote that's only in there for like 20 minutes, that's just dumb marketing. That's not a twist, that's just bad. The people who don't want to get spoiled don't have to go looking up things about the movie prior to watching it. Or that's what I'd say if not for one of Marvel's main problems right now. As I mentioned before, I watched Falcon and the Winter Soldier just so I could be more prepared for watching this movie and so I could talk about it with some semblance of authority. But I also looked up what other things I should watch in preparation for the movie. And most lists had at least 5 movies plus the TV show. Now, I didn't feel like watching all of that, so I read some wiki pages just to get caught up. But if you don't feel like watching 5 movies plus an entire TV show, but also want to avoid spoilers for this movie, good luck, because you really don't have a third option in this situation. Without watching the show, the movie mostly makes sense, but a lot of the nuance is gone, and it feels like a lot of the characters would just come out of nowhere. So you can function without it, but you really shouldn't. Like, Isaiah isn't a main character in the show, but his story is deeply important into how Sam decides he should become Captain America. And now I have to explain the show to you, because without it, it doesn't quite make sense in the section, which is almost like the whole fucking point right now. In the show, the mantle of Captain America was given to Sam by Steve, but Sam doesn't feel like he really has deserved it, so he gives up the shield and gives it to the Smithsonian. The Smithsonian gives it to the government, who gives it to a white man to become Captain America. Sam does not like this decision, nor does, pretty much anybody else, so cool and fun. Lots of plot stuff happens. He ends up meeting with Isaiah Bradley, and ends up talking to him about his experience with the American government, especially their treatment of black people. Isaiah ends up saying directly to him, they will never let a black man be Captain America. And even if they did, no self-respecting black man would ever want to be. He ends up saying this to Sam because he was specifically mistreated by the government for being a black man, during a time in which the government was going out of their way to mistreat everybody who was black. Not to say that it's all that much better now, but at least it's a little bit better. But you can see from his perspective why he wouldn't understand why anyone would want to take up the mantle of Captain America, be a representative of this country, when this country has been nothing but horrible to these people. In the end, Sam obviously takes up the mantle of Captain America because he has seen Steve fight for not what America currently is and what it's representing, but fighting for what it should be and what it could become. From him taking up the name Captain America, he is loudly telling everybody, hey, America is as much my country as any white person's. But say you didn't see the show. Now, all you know is Steve died and Sam is Captain America, without seeing any of the internal struggles of what it means for him to be a black man becoming Captain America in today's world. Isaiah's story is vaguely hit on in the movie, but we don't really have that emotional connection, so seeing him imprisoned again doesn't really hit as hard as it really should. And for all of the people who are super separated from how superheroes work and don't understand that superhero titles can be passed down from person to person, they end up saying stupid shit like they race swapped Captain America, not to mention all of the racism that is entwined with this. But the racism stuff is so embedded into how Sam Wilson as a character functions, because funny enough, the Captain America should be a white man racism isn't also in the show. But the movie doesn't touch on it, assuming everyone has the show's backstory, which means a large portion of your audience is either not going to know that these things happen, or have forgotten at this point. And it's especially strange given how, in this movie, Sam is going directly against the American government and president, which would realistically have some interesting ramifications for him as a black person. But acknowledging that America today is not super great would be bad for one of their main movies, so they shove it aside into the TV show. But we can acknowledge that America was bad in the 1950s to black people. Because that is okay. Because yes, watching 37 movies and at least 10 TV shows for every new installment in your franchise is crazy. But when you decide to put major storylines into your TV shows, which you know are going to be less watched, especially for your minority characters, you are setting up any future projects with those characters in them for failure. And worse, you are setting up the actors of those characters for harassment. There are many reasonable reasons to not like this movie. I'd also say there are many reasonable reasons to not like She-Hulk or the live-action Little Mermaid. However, none of those reasons are that they are centering women or people of color. Disney, as a franchise, are cowards who keep putting people center stage that will garner hate just for existing, so that when they cheap out on their writing and directing and CGI effects, etc., they have someone else to blame, apart from themselves, when the movie flops or the project flops. Disney bashing aside, this brings me to my last point, that being Brave New World and its writing is almost okay, but it just feels like they needed one more round of polishing and refining before they sent the movie to get filmed. One of my overall complaints for this is it just felt like a lot of the movie ended up getting cut, and we do have some confirmation that a lot of it actually did. The runtime is about 2 hours, but it feels like it maybe should have been a 2.5-hour movie, though I'm not sure I really wanted it to be longer. It just, the story that we were presented felt like it should be. All of the stuff surrounding the leader was just really bland and lacking. Sam and Torres' friendship and mentorship just didn't feel as flushed out as it was supposed to be. All of the politics stuff was just kind of shoved in there for some reason, and that one bad guy that just kept coming back, it didn't quite feel like he was needed to be this recurring character. They just didn't really seem to know what to do with him. So it just, a lot of it was odd. Speaking of that bad smuggler dude, he's played by Giancarlo Esposito, who, is a really good actor. He is in Breaking Bad. He also plays the Magic Mirror in Once Upon a Time, if that's something you're into. He is truly really well regarded. So him just existing in this movie as the third least important villain just doesn't quite make sense. Why would Marvel not just do anything better with him? I don't know. One point I have a particular issue with is that we are shown some of Sam's general office space where he has some decorations up. In one of the photos, he has his buddy Riley, who is mentioned in the MCU, but really isn't ever a character, so don't worry if you don't know him. Riley and him had been paired up to test the Falcon wings in their early stages of development. On a mission, Riley ends up getting shot and falls out of the sky and dies. Now, why do I bring this up? You might have already made the mental connection that seems really, really similar to Torres getting shot out of the sky and nearly dying. But does this movie take any time to unpack the emotional parallels that Sam must have been going through in that instance? No. Because why would we need any of that? Nuance? Who is she? With that, when Bucky ends up visiting him in the hospital as Torres is actively getting surgery in front of them, Sam really only starts talking about himself and how he should have taken the serum so that this wouldn't have happened, I guess. In front of Bucky, the poster child of I got traumatized from having the serum. And also, another major plot point through their TV show together was, hey, we should have less super soldiers, and this is doing bad things because when there's more super soldiers, more people want to become them, and it just is a revolving problem of too many We don't need more super soldiers. Sam, we thought you knew this. Why are you saying this? This doesn't make sense for him. And don't even get me started on how this movie screws over Bucky as a character. I don't really want him in this movie more than he already is. I understand that this is not a Bucky movie, but the writers couldn't come up with a better solution to not having him around than he's running for Congress? Why? Why is he doing... That doesn't make any sense. I have a better explanation, and it would have taken an extra 30 seconds of the film. All we need is Sam to call up Bucky and say, hey bestie, I understand that you are mentally way better now, and that, you totally want to help, but this dude is our main bad guy, and he is using, mind control. I don't want to put you in that situation again, given, your entire past, so thanks for wanting to help, but I think you should sit this one out. This would make way more sense and would also just show that Sam understands the emotional trauma that Bucky has been through, which would make sense for Sam as a character because he has been established as being a counselor for veterans with PTSD. Then there is the big fight scene with the Red Hulk at the end, where he is only stopped by Sam talking him back down into not being the Hulk anymore. I don't have problems with that as an ending because that is consistent with what we have seen of the original Hulk. My main issue is, why is the Secret Service and military shooting at the Hulk? They should know, especially as they are protecting the president who famously hates the Hulk, they should be trained on how to deal with one. They should know shooting it does not stop it. So why are they even trying? They know this won't work. Then there's the end scene with Sam and Torres in the hospital, which just feels weird. Sam ends up talking about all of the pressure it takes to be Captain America as a black man, and he's saying this to Torres, who isn't black, but is Hispanic, so I think he would understand to a certain degree what it feels like. I'm assuming they were trying to go for kind of inspirational and all of that, but it just feels like Sam's being really weird and egotistical. This scene in particular feels like one that had the most major cuts that left it feeling empty and wrong. Not to say that other scenes didn't have this, but this one in particular just was not giving what I assume what they meant it to give. All in all, Marvel made a movie that seemingly is unimportant to the future of the franchise. They've ruined their own reveal. They made it so that you have to watch a ridiculous amount of other content for it just to make proper sense. They treat their minority characters like trash, and on top of it all, it just kind of has shitty writing. I do not think that this movie had the expectation to be good on release by the people putting it out, and I love movies, and it feels like they just did a massive disservice to everyone involved just because they could. Anywho, thank you for making it to the end of the video. If you liked this, feel free to check out all of the other ones I've made. I say all, there's 2. Leave a nice little comment, subscribe, like the video, you know the deal. If you didn't like it, really not sure why you're still here, but thanks for sticking around also, I guess. But elsewise, I'll see you probably next month when I have another video idea, so bye!